an audio that we've made for the Open Studios in March. We were halfway on our residency then, we started in September. There was an installation in 3 different parts of the building, one here in the auditorium, the other one in the library, and one in the metal lab.
Give us that second for the technical team.
Here on the image you can see that there was this cord hanging just where Ron is sitting almost. And it was, let's say, a playground for parrots.
Well done.
Well done.
Well done.
For those who are not allowed to view the living type.
Living type. Type.
These are the only means by which they can help their ever-weakening fantasies. Let us thank God.
God. Thanks.
Let us thank God that there are capitalists.
God. Capitalist. Capitalist. God.
The text that you hear are based on historical research that we did. And you've listened to a parrot who tried to learn this text. And the audio is made by Domenico and me, as you probably have heard, which is actually a very good example on how we collaborate together. And the reason that we applied for the residency here at the Jan van Eyck is because we are collaborating since 6 years now, but we have different backgrounds. And Domenico works since a long time already as a visual artist, and I come from the field of architectural history. So we thought that Jan van Eyck would be a really good place where we could combine doing research and making the work. When we were thinking of a project to propose, we came in this area, and we always like to work in a local way, actually, when we are doing a residency, or focused on the area where we are living. The first thing that we thought was trying to find out where the mines were. Of course, it's a fascinating history, of course also very obvious, maybe for people who live in this area. But we thought let's go around and see where these buildings were and how does that landscape looks like. So we've been driving around with the car in Heerlen, in the outskirts of Heerlen, if I don't make a mistake. And we couldn't find anything of the buildings. We saw only beautiful parks, new housing. We realized that everything was erased. But we wanted to have that experience ourselves, so we didn't study that on forehand. We just took the car and let's see how we can recognize it. But what we saw was a little sign saying that there was a mine somewhere, which said carbon mine. And we thought, oh, you see, so there is a mine here in the area. So let's follow that sign. So we did. I think it said like 15, 20 kilometers. So we followed that sign. And we ended up in Valkenburg, which is 15 kilometers away from Maastricht. And we ended up seeing that mine. And we realized that that was a copy of a carbon mine in the Netherlands. So in the Netherlands, in contrast to, for example, Belgium or Germany, you cannot find the physical historical aspects anymore of the mines. They are just all gone. When in the 60s, at the end of the 60s, 70s, they were closed. They erased that whole history. But you have this copy of that mine. We went to visit it, and then we saw another sign, and that said Roman catacombs. And we thought, wow, what is this? Roman catacombs. Let's go and have a look. And we found this museum, which is a copy of the catacombs that you find in Rome from the 2nd to the 4th century. It might sound a bit silly, but this is how we love to work, just go to a place and then see what happens. And yeah, we were quite fascinating that in this small village, you had these two museums which were made in the beginning of the 20th century with total different approach. We found out then that Valkenburg has been a tourist village already since the beginning of the 20th century. It's still actually now the most, one of the most touristic villages in the Netherlands. They get 1 million visitors a year, but it's this kind of tourism which is all about entertainment. So we thought, wow, you have two families who had this marl quarries, because that's what it is. It's our empty marl quarries that they made another concept out because of tourism. So one family comes up with the idea to make a copy of a mine, because when they built that museum, the mines were opened in that moment by the state, but as a normal person, you could never get access to these mines. So they thought, let's make this copy of the mine, so at least you can have an idea of how these mines work. And then when the mines were closed in the 60s, the state donated a lot of machines to that museum. So now if you go to that museum, they give you the whole history of technical aspect of the mine. You go around with a guide and they explain in detail the evolution of technical aspects. So you do not get the story of the problems with health or the social problems which were there when the mines arrived and also when the mines closed, of course. Then there was another family who had an empty marl quarry and thought, let's make a copy of Roman catacombs. They went in 1909 to Rome. They met the Pope and they asked if they could copy those catacombs. They brought along Kuipers, which was an important architect in the time in the Netherlands. And then they took all the measurements of the original catacombs in Rome. And they used a book by Wilpert, who was an archaeologist. And this is the book.
You can see that?
Yeah. And it's sort of the first database of all the drawings that you can find in the catacombs.
Yeah. This is the Italian version. There is two versions, of course. One is German and one Italian, because Giuseppe Wilpert, or Joseph Wilpert, was a German priest. And this book, like Marike said, the first database is very interesting because they work around 10 years to make this big book. And until now, if you want to study something very deep about the Roman catacomb, you need to look this book. And another interesting thing is it's very big, sorry, but if you want to see, I can show you. They made this book before with a very nice reportage with black and white, but you can imagine it was the last century is very big camera, and underground in the catacomb is completely dark, so they use some light like Bengala, like in the stadium. And they need to waiting when the smoke go out. And after Wilpert asked a Roman painter, Carlo Tabanelli, to put watercolor or gouache or something at least to give the realistic color for the catacomb. And this was one of the start points, because when we discovered these two, let me say, strange place, our goal, okay, is very strange. This is the idea of simulacrum. And we have these two cults. One place, the Roman catacomb, when the Catholic religion born. And so the idea of spiritualism, so people go underground to put somebody and they believe one day they go to the heaven or something like this. And the workers in the mine, you go underground and they discover the hell probably. So we have these two cults. One, the spirituality part, and the other part is the carbon mine and the symbol of industrial revolution. So if you want to give an interpretation, maybe the symbol of capitalism. So our idea, now we are still a work in progress, to try to put together this two strange case study. And of course, both are simulacrum. So we live in an era where we have a fake news. We don't understand what is true, what is real, what is fake, what is original. And both places, they explain also the idea of propaganda, if you want. If you go in this museum, the Carbon Mine Museum, is very big propaganda about the technique. They explain you the noise of the machine. And Marika said before, they never talk about the problem, about the miners, no? And also in the Roman catacomb, there is many strange story about people was there illegal, and people make, some religious event downstairs, but it's not true. So we want to combine in our project these two simulacrum, and we want to start from this idea, probably from Plato, the idea of go to the cave and discover the fantasy or another world, another imagination. And for us, it's very a crazy combination. And we, in Jan van Eyck, we arrived to make before an installation with a ceramic sculpture, also painting or other element, but also in the end we want to make a film, a fiction film, because we discovered many stratification and layers about story, and an important thing is the rule of the guide.
Maybe show some
maybe
works.
Before we show our open studio, let me share the website. Okay, here you can see one part of our presentation. So we have two ideas of a fresco, two wall painting. One is with this grid, and exactly the grid you can find in the Roman catacomb, but are without the iconography. So it's something like in progress. You can put whatever you want, or exactly the moment when they start to building the idea to make some picture of a Virgin Mary with the baby or whatever you want. And the other part is full of charcoal. And if you see in detail, I hope you can visit us in our studio. Is also here a lot stratification or layer, because exactly when they made the museum, it was the 1910, exactly the moment when we have the avant-garde. So it's like action painting. If you have a possibility to see the documentary about the carbon mine, you can see these people always black. They wash their hand everywhere, and everything become black. And the ceramic sculpture is an idea of we call sometimes mental architecture, because in the same for us are like device, but this idea of to go like a labyrinth or like an animal house, these effigies to make something like organic, or if you want, you can see some piece of body. And so we try to give this another idea of simulacrum. So we start from the copy of the original thing, and we try to give another layer again to make another word again.
Yeah, we realized actually by looking very close to these case studies that a museum like that only works on one hand with the physical aspect, so how is the decor, the set when you walk around, but the other aspect is the narrative that the guide gives you. You cannot visit those museums without a guide. So our research was on those two pillars. This part, the ceramics and the wall paintings, are more to that physical part. And then the audio works that we installed in these three places are connected more with the role and the authority of the guide. And then we actually arrive more in like what is our interest, and that this whole idea of simulacrum connects, of course, to nowadays that we have all this world of social media where you can often see a sort of specific ideal version of what people want to offer you. But what we even became more interested in is also how the actual museums, and then also museums that show contemporary art, offer you nowadays more and more these guiding tours because they have the need to become more open for a broader public, inclusive. And then the tool that they often use is this guiding tour. And we were wondering if that's a way to go, because you give them one version of how to interpret the artwork, and you take out all the aspect of people who might not be used to see art, but this moment of being afraid or not understanding is taken away by that guiding tour, because you try to introduce them into the vocabulary of art, but in a way that they can understand. So maybe sometimes simplified. So we were interested in studying these case studies who do already this for 100 years to give one specific version of what their museum is to the public. And we have been rethinking that through how this tool is used nowadays, actually in the museum. Maybe we can show the images of the installation.
This one.
Mm-hmm. So these were the places with the audio installation.
Yeah, the idea, we want to show this picture and the audio, but doesn't work before a technical problem. But it was also idea we are here in the same, like metaphysical idea to show the empty space, and we are here in the same time.
So we, a part of the research that we've been doing is that I became a guide in the catacombs. I had to learn a text which was written out. And I found out that already since the museum is open from 1909, these texts are written for the people that they hire. And in
Sorry.
In the text, in the archive in Heerlen, you can find like at least 20 booklets of text for the guides. So the first one is from 1909, and then 20s, 30s. And so on, and that's very special that you find an archive like that with all the text written out. These texts didn't change that much. Sometimes they made comments like, if you have a group which is Catholic, then you do not need to say this or that. I found that out in the 50s. And I have been doing these tours now for like 6-7 times, just not doing any guerrilla action or whatever. I just explain the text as I'm used to what they want from me, because we want to see mostly what is the reaction of the public and what are the questions that they have and how does it work. And next week we go with a small group of people around there and to discover all together how these catacombs work and function. I think we want to finish now with the movie. We made, during Corona, a small film only of 3 minutes, which was part of a project on artists during Corona for the Trussardi Foundation in Italy. What is important for us is that while we were starting here our project, we were not really clear yet if the film that we have in mind to shoot later, if that would be on the location that we are studying here. And we realized actually that it's interesting for us now during Corona to work in a more intimate way, that we can make that simulacrum world also by ourselves in our own space, and that we do not need to film on the location. So yeah, this film is not dealing with simulacrum, but gives you a very intimate way of our life in the quarantine.
Oh.
That was it.
Thank you very much. Anyone has some questions? The online viewers are very quiet. And I cannot see anyone. What's happening, guys? Okay. I was just wondering, maybe this is a question that might unveil too much of something that is not yet decided, but you mentioned fictional narrative for the upcoming movie about the simulacrum notion and on the catacombs and mine. What are the ideas that you're considering, or do you mind opening up the process a little bit? Because I'm curious, especially after this Corona thing and how you now shifted maybe for a more intimate approach. with you working on the catacombs and etc. I'm just curious to know more, and I hope I don't put you in an uncomfortable position of doing it while being recorded in front of 40 people.
In the beginning of the process. But according to what I think now, it's there will be a figure which will be that guide, because this research on the guide is much more metaphorical for yeah, how do you get education, and how is information transferred, what are the ideas of what are your prejudices on the public that you have in front of you. So yeah, at the moment that's what my mind goes, versus like you will get sort of a guide who will give you a tour on a new world.
No, of course, everything changed after the COVID-19. The first approach for us was to go there and filming underground, to make set maybe underground. But now we have idea. I don't know. Maybe with the situation, we want to work more in something come from inside us, and not to a lot relate to the location. And also, you know, in the cinema and literature, we have always this figure of a mediator, like Virgilio in the Divina Commedia, or if you think, for example, the Arcturus of Sukhorov, you have this strange guy accompany you around the Hermitage. So we have this strange figure like ghost, angel, or guide, and we have 2-3 elements. And for us also it's a big challenge, because it's the first time we want to make fiction. And if you know our past work, we work a lot with people who we have in front. So this will be for us a big step. But the strange thing in this last 2 months, we have a lot of idea. We have a lot note information about. Okay, we want to give this, and this is impossible to have in the reality. This is our motivation. And also in the last film we made before this project, we feel this sensation, miss something, because, you know, when you film a lot with the reality, something, you know, is impossible to keep and put in the film. So, and we want to give more information, and it's difficult to, because we have many layers. We have the guide, we have the Roman catacomb with a lot of story and a lot of certification. We have also the story about the carbon mine. I told you before this idea of spirituality, non-spirituality, and materialism, technique, and also we have this feel. We don't want to have a like special effect. If we will make like a fiction, is stay in the same level of the reality. So we don't want to make something like a virtual life, but in the same time, virtual simulacrum is a virtual life, but analogic. So we want to try to cross this border and stay with one step in the idea of simulacrum and one step in our, you know, our something come from inside us.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you all for putting the effort and time of making the presentations. I appreciate it very much, and I think I speak for everyone here. And Mikey wants to say something.
Yeah, I forgot. Of course, we were really looking forward to have a studio or a presentation on our work in our studio, where we still have the sculptures and wall painting. In the next weeks, they will disappear.
Yeah.
So we invite you, even now, if you are interested in coming to see them from close by, because that's, of course, another experience than on the screen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next week we'll have Young Yun for a 25-minute presentation, and Inyas for a 10-minute presentation.